A ferocious battle, a great victory, a battle-hardened, relentless enemy. We were outnumbered 20-1, 100 Australians against 2,000 Viet Cong. Still, we prevailed. From that day on, the Vietnamese thought twice before having another go at our troops. So you'd think it would be up there with Gallipoli, Kokoda and Tobruk, one of those iconic battles, part of our national identity. But who remembers Long Tan? Certainly not the Australian government, who did everything it could to bury the truth. Now, 40 years on, Peter Harvey returns to the battlefield to salute the forgotten heroes of Long Tan.
They're older now and grey, returning to Long Tan, travelling back to the site of one of the most ferocious battles of the Vietnam War.
That's the battlefield down there!
This is the first time any of the diggers who took part in that battle have made the pilgrimage back to this place of shifting light and misleading distances. A place and an event that changed their lives forever. What do you think? What do you remember about it?
Things I don't remember.
The truth is, these old soldiers have never been able to forget what happened in this rubber plantation all those years ago. And once again, the Viet Cong are coming towards them.
Yeah, I think they're a bit nervous.
Do you want to hold hands?
No, David. No way.
These men are veterans of the powerful force that threatened to annihilate the massively outnumbered young diggers on this spot 40 years ago.
I've got butterflies.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi there.
Hey. I'm Bob. My name's Bob.
David
Your name?
is my name. David.
Bob Buick and Dave Sabin lost many mates on that bloody, rain-soaked afternoon back in 1966, but today they reach out to their old foe.
All hands.
Just try for a moment to picture the absolute raging hell that was going on in this rubber tree plantation 40 years ago. The Australians and the Vietnamese were locked in a battle that was literally to the death.
No matter how many people you shot, they seemed to just rise back up again, out of the mist.
If you got hit, you lay there. You couldn't even move 3 metres to your mate.
It was an intense battle. It lasted 3 hours in driving monsoonal rain, with every element you could imagine.
Military historian Ashley Eakins believes the Battle of Long Tan is one of our greatest ever victories. The odds against us, 20-1.
In some ways, the enemy was better equipped than the Australians. Well-equipped soldiers, well-trained, well-disciplined. They were using everything at their disposal, and they were using human wave assaults against this very small group of men.
Well,
The Vietnam War began quietly enough for Bob Buick and Dave Sabin. They were stationed here at Nui Dat, the site of Australia's military headquarters, with the 6th Royal Australian Regiment's Delta Company. And for the first month or so, they didn't even see the enemy.
They seem to be pussyfooting around.
Dave was 21, an officer fresh out of training.
I don't think anybody knew exactly what was going to happen.
Bob was 26, a platoon sergeant who'd been in the army since the early 60s. As it turned out, they turned out to be a very formidable opponent indeed.
They certainly were.
The Viet Cong had been hardened by decades of unrelenting warfare, first against the French, then the South Vietnamese and the Americans. Now, the Australians were the target, standing between them and control of Nui Dat, the heart of the strategically vital Phuoc Tuy province.
They were tough, experienced campaigners. They'd been campaigning since the wars against the French 20 or more years ago.
Do we know how much they knew about the Australians?
The Viet Cong had begun to develop a pretty good picture of the Australians, and both sides were clearly heading for a showdown.
Late on August 17, 1966, the Viet Cong began testing the Australians. Nui Dat pounded by mortar fire. An invitation to come out and fight. they didn't have to wait long. The next day, 105 Delta Company diggers, under the command of Major Harry Smith, moved out looking for the enemy.
We had no idea they were there.
If you had, what would have happened? Would there have been a battle of Long Tan?
No, there wouldn't have been. No, there wouldn't have been.
Bob's platoon spearheaded the patrol as it scoured the countryside. 5 kilometres out from Nui Dat, the first contact.
I saw them and instinctively shot at them. And then they took off to the east.
2 enemy were dead, and thinking it was only a small patrol, Bob's platoon gave chase. But a few hundred metres into the rubber plantation, all hell broke loose. They'd walked into an estimated 2,500 North Vietnamese soldiers. These are actual recordings of D Company's desperate radio calls for help.
Well, on the left-hand side, there's 6 guys in the first initial burst. Those 6 guys were either dead or wounded. 1/3 of my force was taken out.
Almost immediately.
Well, it was immediately.
Bob's platoon commander, Gordon Sharp, was one of the first to die, shot in the neck. Bob was now in charge.
You know, there's a guy next to you, he's talking to you 1 minute, and the next thing he's dead.
It must have been absolutely terrifying, or is the truth of it you were simply too busy to be scared?
You are too busy thinking of what you must do to get the best results you can. You're there to save yourselves and to kill the enemy.
Confirmed, no choppers available. Over.
Half an hour of desperate fighting passed in a blur. Then the skies opened up.
And there's really Armageddon. The thunder, the lightning, and the absolute monsoonal showers that come down.
The rain was a godsend, so intense it kicked up a mist that gave the diggers cover from the withering onslaught.
The mist is blocking out the ground to about this level. So everything underneath that level is not visible to the enemy. All that's poking out of that is the diggers' hats and their eyes, not even their rifles.
Bob's platoon was able to pull back, linking up with the rest of the company in what turned into a last-ditch stand.
I'm pinned down 3 sides of taking casualties. Get up, move forward to call sign. 4-2, over.
So we were there, live or die. That was where we were going to live or die. They're just relentlessly moving up. Towards the end, it was in waves of maybe 40 or 50 waves at a time. And the spooky thing about it was that as the second wave passed the first, the survivors of the first would stand up. And it was like the dead were coming to life.
What saved the Australians as much as their nerve, discipline and sheer guts was the artillery. Throughout the entire battle, heavy guns 5 kilometres away at Nui Dat gave them supporting fire. The artillery was down there. You blokes were 5 kilometres over that way. You're being attacked by 2,500 enemy soldiers and you call in the artillery. They can't see you, you can't see them. How much faith and trust were you putting in those gunners?
Totally.
Towards the end of it, it was coming on top of you.
About half a football field away.
With darkness closing in and ammunition running low, the tide was turning against the Australians.
At the end there, we were just trading shot for shot. Blow for blow, wound for wound. It was just fire. And the artillery running constantly, if you can imagine, an artillery round every second.
The noise must have been horrendous.
Horrendous.
But just as the light began to fade, the cavalry arrived. Unheard above the rain and the roar of battle, 7 Australian troop carriers motored into the plantation, and as night fell, more reinforcements arrived.
The battle had ceased. As quick as it had begun, that's how quick it wasn't a slow dying off. It is cut, that's it. Someone turned the light out, the bullets stopped flying.
Next morning, the survivors returned to the battlefield where, to their shock, they found 2 wounded diggers, Privates Jim Richmond and Barry Mellor. But their elation was tempered by their losses. 18 men in all, most from Bob's platoon.
What they didn't prepare us for is to go back the next day into the battlefield, and the smell of the battlefield and the carnage. They don't teach you that. And that's for an infantry guy, you get upset.
Well, you must think about your mates, obviously. You think about them often? The ones who didn't make it?
Always, Peter. And it's the reflection that gets you.
For the Vietnamese, the memories are just as vivid. Commander Thu also bears the physical scars of that encounter, a survival nothing short of a miracle. So the bullet went in this ear and came out this ear, all the way across.
There's a hole there.
Yeah.
There's a scar there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah. He's a very lucky man.
Very lucky.
Yeah.
Very lucky
God
man.
save him.
I'll say. Commander Thu was indeed lucky. The North Vietnamese suffered enormous losses at Long Tan, at least 245 dead, but in all likelihood, many more. Yet, for 40 years, they've stubbornly claimed victory. Today, though, these 2 veterans make a surprising concession. The Australians see this as a big victory. The Vietnamese see this as a big victory. Who won?
The answer is, you won this battle, but we won the war.
One of the truest measures of the battle that was fought out here is this, that never again, for the entire duration of the war, would the Vietnamese tackle the Aussies head-on. For the men of Delta Company, the rest of their war was very much an anticlimax, and unlike the men who were to follow them, their welcome home was a warm one, with one significant exception. The South Vietnamese applauded them, the US President gave them a citation, but their own government refused to acknowledge the significance of the battle and their unflinching heroism. The Australian government of the time treated you like something that should be put under the carpet. Is that too tough?
I'm afraid you're telling the truth. I think that's the way it's been.
Why?
I'd like to know the answer to that. I'm afraid I can't tell you. I don't know why. I don't understand why.
In part, the return to Long Tan was a search for understanding of what they and their mates had gone through so long ago. To Bob and Dave, it comes down to duty and standing by your friends and proving something to themselves. I mean, what was achieved here will stand by itself forever. There's just no question about that. And that's something the Vietnamese recognise.
Correct. True. So, despite the big picture of the war, the little picture was that they recognised that we won our war. And that is what they respect and admire.